All right, we're back live on the Andre Duke Show with Carter Smith. How's everybody doing tonight? I think Richie's probably going to jump in a little bit later. A little bit of a programming update. Everybody, for the most part, has been super busy end of the year stuff, spring and all that fun stuff that we got rolling. So we'll start it off. The big thing, USC wants to cancel the series with Notre Dame. How is everybody feeling about that? That is the bigger question. That is something that we've got, that's a hurdle on the scheduling spot of it. And I'm not saying that I stick up for USC on this deal, but I can see why they would do it. They already played 9 conference games. On top of that, they are to the point to where they are, Lincoln Riley needs wins more than anything. The fact that, USC has struggled coming out of the gate the last couple of years. They had the big loss that LSU, everybody thought they were going to be all right. And then it just spiraled downhill. Sid here, glad to see you're back. Well, they should have thought about that before deciding to join the Big Ten. Yeah, that is something that they should have hashed out before they decided to do that. And yeah, I get it. It's part of the schedule, and USC has always traditionally left that date open. I believe they've played since almost every year, since like the 20s. So my feeling on that is I think that USC might have got offended with the Clemson sign on. Notre Dame has the Clemson obligation now, so I don't think that that's the be all end all. I think that Notre Dame's not going to have any issues finding someone to fill that spot. They could just stroll up the street and say, "Hey, UCLA, how about it?" And it would be the ultimate troll move. So I think the schedule and a lot of things are going to change. The Deloitte decision, the House versus NCAA, is, for all intents and purposes, in my opinion, is an absolute mess for the most part. There's the grumblings that some of the coaches have seen the final draft of it. Yeah, I hear you on that, Sid, as well. Seeing how, trying to pull this up real quick, seeing how that USC and they're wanting to back out, but I think that the threatening of the conference expulsion is just unbelievable, because I'm sure there's got to be somebody in the TV world, raising their hand and saying, "Hey, a major brand that doesn't want to sign on to the deal, so they're just going to kick, a majority of the." I think they're going to have more pushback from the Big 12 and the ACC and possibly the Big 10 on this. The Big 10 is real big into the academics. I know some people are like, "Yeah, we should do this," because it opens the door for, the one thing American sports doesn't have is relegation, like the English Premier League does. Could you imagine walking into a university and telling Tennessee, "Hey, what we're the the thing that we're putting together supersedes your state laws. I just don't see how in a world that that's going to fly. The clearinghouse decision, I don't see how that's going to fly. It is just unbelievable, some of the things that is being proposed that's on the table. And then not to mention, you're trying to negotiate a salary cap on something that is a open market thing. And, I think a lot of people that have watched our show in the past, me and Carter talked a lot about this leading up to the House versus NCAA, when it was going to be settled or proposed, or all of the particulars there. I think that you've got some major issues to fast forward here. I just don't see how in a perfect world they're going to be able to try to limit and tell somebody what they can and cannot make on the open market. That's just my opinion. Some people disagree with that. They say, well, they're just going to slap a cap on it. I don't think you can slap a cap on it, to be honest. That is pretty much where I'm sitting on this whole entire thing. I think, they're up to, it's going to get litigated to death. And I think that's why the judge, Claudia Wilken, is not rendered a decision yet. Sid says, I don't think a cap solves anything. Well, I don't think it does either, because I don't know how you can put a cap on something that somebody, let's say I own a lawn care business and I want to pay all the people that work at my lawn care business $50 an hour. Some commission can't come in and say that we oh wow, breaking news. Breaking news for the people in the state of Indiana. Adam Schefter just reported right now, the Colts have announced Jim Irsay has passed away. That was not on the bingo card for me. Wow, that is a big announcement in the evening here. Breaking news. Wow, the Colts lose the patriarch of their franchise. That's unbelievable. An unbelievable announcement there on this Wednesday night. Jim Irsay on 5/21. Wow, that is. Yeah, it's prayers with the Irsay family. Wow, that is devastating news. Yeah, the Colts, on the Colts official Twitter page, I'm scrolling through it right now. They've released a statement as far as what happened with Mr. Irsay. That is unfortunate news to kick the show off with. But moving on, with the House settlement, I don't think they're gonna be able to put a cap on it. And then also the collectives that have committed the revenue sharing money, what do those universities do that have committed the resources that they thought they were going to have, I believe June 1st. And, that deadline's coming, and fixing the calendar, the off-season calendar, so in the playoffs are not congruent with the college football playoff. But also, I want to heed this warning. Me and Carter had talked about this a while ago, and when the break-off people were getting real loud about, well, we'll just break off from the NCAA, like the Big Ten and the SEC. And I say to you, that's great in a fantasy land. But don't think for a minute the NFL will not come for Saturday. They put Saturday games on the 20th. They put, I believe it's Commanders, Eagles, and Bears, Packers. The normal NFL times. So that is also one thing I think the NFL is going to look at. They kind of have that little handshake agreement behind the scenes. Hey, we'll stay off of Saturdays during the regular season, but if you break off and try to form something outside of the NCAA, I believe the NFL is just going to raid Saturday, and then all your TV money is going to get ate up because I would say, hey, Fox, you want to broadcast? You want to broadcast Rutgers, Minnesota at noon when you can have Bears, Packers at 4:00 or 1:00? I don't think so. And I think, in the back part of the year, I think you're going to start seeing more and more of this. The NFL's they dabbled in the Friday market. They put a game on Friday this year, which I can't believe, to be honest. The Eagles, Packers, and Brazil, they've already, that's why they like that playing games overseas. They get that 9:30 market, so you get that whole change of the market there, and you're looking at some things. They're dominating time slots, so that's the only warning I'm going to heed towards college football with the whole breakoff thing. And then the conference expulsion, I don't think that's going to fly, because I think also the TV people are going to say, hold on, wait a minute, we were guaranteed to have school X, Y, and Z in this conference for those fan bases and for those markets. Why do you think the Big Ten took 2 schools from the East Coast? Why do you think the Big Ten took USC and the West Coast? It's to appease the TV partners so they have time slots for all day for Big Ten football. Although, me and Richie talked about it last week. The Big Ten, the Big Ten's TV deal, Ohio State and Michigan have played more noon games than like the next 6 universities combined in the last couple of years. So I think that the TV deal, when it comes up, is going to be pretty contentious for the Big Ten, because they're going to want more money and they're going to want more control over their schedules. That's just I don't have any intimate knowledge on that side of it, but I'm just saying that I don't know how they don't ask for that, because what does the SEC have? They have the best night games, and which everything's dictated to the Eastern time zone. That's why whenever Colorado has a noon game, they play at 10 o'clock their time. I'm sure the people that live in Colorado aren't particularly thrilled about playing at 10 o'clock in the morning just to appease the whole eastern side of the country, but that's what happens. And USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon, because of time conflicts, will never play noon games at home. So they can't really ever do big noon kickoff for those 4 schools. So your whole concept, and I'm trying to think here. I don't remember the last time Nebraska or any of the teams that are in that middle section of the Big Ten that are on Central Time. I mean, they can play at 11 o'clock, but 9 a.m. on the West Coast, that's just not happening. I think if CBS gets involved and they have a Penn State night game and it blows up the TV numbers, but Fox just doesn't want to go against the SEC, I get it, but that's just something that's very, very interesting to me, because I think Bjork has at Ohio State, and I'm sure Ward Manual, a lot of those schools that are getting stuck in the noon time slot, like Penn State was just stuck in the noon time slot, and I bet Ohio State, Penn State will be at noon. I mean, the Ohio State Michigan is typically a noon game anyway. I think they've only moved it to 3:30 one time when it was the game of the century, 1 versus 2. So I don't particularly see that game moving, but I just look at it and I feel like that there's a big jump in TV numbers, because me personally, I'd have rather seen Penn State, Ohio State 3:30 or 7:30 kick times. I mean, that's fine if you want to leave Ohio State, Michigan at, the noon time slot on rivalry weekend, but play Rutgers at noon, play Maryland at noon, play some of the mid-tier schools at noon so they can get some of that viewership, to be honest, really. So that's that. And then you have, the Ohio State USC thing. Looks like it's completely imploding. I don't know what USC's thought process is. They've got to try to drum up more wins for Lincoln Riley, because when they joined the Big Ten was going to pass out to the new schools extra losses. And I don't think people quite grasp that concept yet. The star of Dan Landing at Oregon right now is unbelievably hot. He's Dan Landing's doing a good job up there, but can Oregon hang on to him long term? We have to see. It's still weeks before the season, and have to see what we're cooking with out there. But as far as that goes, I think the USC Notre Dame thing, it might go dormant for a while. When Michigan and Harbaugh did the same thing, when Harbaugh came to Michigan, that not Ohio State, but the Notre Dame Michigan thing kind of disappeared, and then so did Michigan State. It kind of disappeared because really a lot of these teams play 9 conference games, and then you want to go play Notre Dame, which for all intents and purposes, they beat the SEC champ last year and made it to the national championship. You're adding a really, really hard non-conference game, but I don't know if Notre Dame's going to lean into the whole Southern thing. I wouldn't be shocked if they're not putting more games on the books with the SEC schools, to be honest, because the money and the dough is going to be there. And that's the one unique thing about Notre Dame, is a lot of people complain and whine about the schedule. But, we're not Ohio State and Michigan, where, we played a combined, 30 noon games over the last couple of years. It's like, it's just what it is. Sid says, I'd like to see Tennessee on the schedule again. Yeah, I'm sure everybody would like to see Tennessee on the schedule after them losing Nico this year. But yeah, Notre Dame, Tennessee, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see Notre Dame, Florida go down to the swamp. Florida State didn't drop it. They're not running scared, but I get it. USC owes Lincoln Riley like $70 million, and they got to justify it somehow. They need more W's in that column. So I think that that's something that they need to totally reevaluate. Has Notre Dame ever played Auburn? That I don't know. But yeah, I'd like to see Auburn on the schedule. It wouldn't shock me if Notre Dame just says, you know what, the hell with you. We'll schedule a couple of MAC opponents. We'll keep the academy schools on there, and we'll have our five ACC opponents, which I think that going forward, the ACC mainstays are going to be, the schedule is going to turn into a gauntlet, because I think you're going to see Miami on the schedule every year, which I think it should be. I think you're going to see Pitt on the schedule more. I think you're going to see Florida State on the schedule more. And then I think they just, whatever Big Ten schools that want to do business, I think that that's what the edict's going to be. And, I think it would be dumb for Purdue to cancel their schedule being an in-state school. And I'd like to, have Notre Dame kick the tires on Indiana. Sid says just less Duke, Wake, UVA, and VT. Yeah. Oh yeah. I would pay money to see that. That would be prime television. Notre Dame going to Death Valley, and it would be a night game, so the Fox people would be okay. They like to watch their. It's just bizarre. The Fox pushing the big noon kickoff is just bizarre to me. But welcome to the show, Charles. And also, if you're watching out there on X, come on over to YouTube and hit that like and subscribe button. If you don't want to subscribe, if you're new to the show, we typically go 5 nights a week here, and during the season 6 nights a week. So we put out a lot of content during the season, but this past off season, everybody that is involved in the show is completely swamped. Myself, Carter, and Richie, we've been busy. It's been a busy last 6 weeks, and also we're trying to get ready for the season, coming up with new ideas, but also we appreciate everybody riding with us. It's been slow in the off season, but if you're around for January, December, we were live. I think we did 31 shows in January, so we were live technically every day in January, and we took a little time off, and everybody had spring break, vacations, and all of that, and all of us have young kids, so we're all trying to do the dad thing and get on top and of our duties as men to our children. So it's that's what we've been doing. So, but we've been working on it, and I think this off season or this season's going to be probably our best one yet. So, but appreciate everybody out there tuning in. Hit that like and subscribe button, and when you hit the like button, it actually pushes us through the algorithm on YouTube. So that is something that is greatly appreciated to get more eyeballs on this podcast and the show, and probably we'll start to get some things going. And we're also, if you don't want to watch the YouTube stream, you can also catch us on Spotify. So we're there too. Just let us know if we're behind on episodes. We can always get that fixed and get things uploaded. So, but yeah, Notre Dame's schedule is going to go through a big change. I'm with Charles here. I would love to see Notre Dame put LSU on the schedule. I don't think Brian Kelly would agree to that. That would almost pretty much be political suicide down there. The Bayou Bengals fans are not thrilled with him for all intents and purposes. We got the Michigan stuff coming up soon. I believe in a couple of days they're going to be the NCAA committee hearings, and that thing will finally be done, over with, and put behind everybody. They'll get what they get, and it'll be moved on to. But LSU, one of the mainstays in the SEC. If they get rid of Brian Kelly will be the first coach and the last three coaches that they've hired not to win a national championship, because you have Nick Saban got a ring at LSU, you had Les Miles get a ring at LSU, and you had he would be the first guy since Jerry DiNardo, which was back in, I believe, 1999 is when DiNardo got fired, and I believe Saban was hired in 2000. So, and the only other school that can say that their last three head coaches they've hired that have won natties is Ohio State, Ryan Day, Urban Meyer, Jim Tressel. So not many universities can walk around and say that. Yeah, that is rough there. I believe he's doing TV now for the Big Ten. I think he is doing TV for the Big Ten. So if he's still on Big Ten Network, I don't watch much of the Big Ten Network. Just some other notes that I got rolling here. Nick Sirianni contract extension. I know this is a college football show, but he got a big He got a contract extension. And that's what that is. Some comments from earlier in the week. Mario Cristobal, his comments were he was interviewed by Pate. Mario Cristobal responds to the critics who says Miami relies on NIL in recruiting. Mario's quote was, "I really don't know the value, the type of noise or people they really have," which is kind of weird, but they paid that the first part that Cantwell kid, but some more Miami notes on that are Carson Beck is, I guess, he's almost at 100%. It's full throttle, all hammers down. We'll have to see what Carson Beck can do. Miami last year took Cam Ward and made Cam Ward the number 1 overall pick. Mario is in that, I believe, is in that weird lull spot because they should have made the playoffs last year, but they didn't. They crapola down their leg up at Syracuse. Kyle McCord, Fran Brown famously gave the winners don't get soap thing. So I think, one of the things that's going on in the ACC, Miami's got to take that next step. For Mario, it's kind of shit or get off the pot time for all intents and purposes. And kind of, in my opinion, Carson Beck was viewed as the number 1 quarterback going into last season and just played his way out of it. And I don't know what had happened. He was dating he had a high profile girlfriend that had some comments for him. Maybe, I'm not going to say whether it's true, whether it's not. Carson's been radio silent on his end, except for whenever he's, out there in the media. But I think that, with everything being said, though, Carson Beck has a lot to prove this year. Because I, as far as I'm seeing it, the QB race is going to be determined, I think, in the back half of the year, who are going to be the top prospects. Then, Kyle McCord went to the ACC and lit it up. So did Cam Ward. I'm not doubting that Carson Beck can't throw the football. He was the starting quarterback for 2 years at Georgia. So I think that, the Georgia thing, there was a lot of big shoes to fill behind Stetson Bennett winning back-to-back natties. Stetson Bennett, more or less, is probably going to go down as a Georgia legend. A legendary player, and you never want to replace a legend, because how does that work out for you? It never really does, because everybody has the last best thing they saw, and then when it comes to you, if you don't live up and deliver on what Stetson Bennett did, to be a back-to-back natty winner as a starting quarterback is just, I don't know how you top that. So, and moving on in other news, Eddie O did. Yeah, Eddie O, Les Miles, Nick Saban are the 3 from LSU. Moving on in other news, we got the DJ Lagway and the Gators saga. Billy Napier provided an update on DJ Lagway. He's throwing 3 days a week. He'll be ready to go for OTAs, so that's good news for Florida. I don't think that the Gators. I think the Gators are on a trajectory to have a good season. It's pretty much they have the same schedule as last year, except it's flipped, I believe, in the SEC with the home where they played on the road. Like, they'll have Texas at home. They'll have Mississippi State at home. They got to go to LSU, and they got to go to Ole Miss. Ole Miss is one of the bigger question marks in the SEC, just to see what that defense is going to look like, because they lost a lot on defense. But Lane did bring in 29 portal guys, I think. I think they brought in 35 guys in general with the recruiting class, with the guys they've added throughout the portal. So I think Ole Miss will be interesting to watch this year. Also, just off the top of the head, the Simmons kid, Austin Simmons, I think is going to be good. I think there's going to be a lot of teams, vying for that 10-2, trying to get into the playoffs. The look of it, I think Ole Miss has got something to say about it, and I think Oklahoma's going to have something to say about it. Auburn, Hugh Freeze needs to win. I think the noise is getting a little loud down there at Auburn, but if they would just be patient, because they try to run Gus Malzahn off, and we'll see how well this fits. So, and then they're thinking about scrapping for the college football playoffs. They're thinking about scrapping the whole 12-team thing. I don't think it'll be this year, but I think it's going to be next year. They're going to push it back to 16. I think before it's all said and done, we're going to end up with 24 teams, to be honest. I just think that that's something that's going to happen. And I think the bowl games, as you see them now, like the Boca Raton Bowl, the GoDaddy Bowl, I don't even think that's a bowl anymore, but the Valero Alamo Bowl, I think a lot of those bowl games are going to dissolve and disappear. Sid Fish going crazy. Oh, man. So I think that, I think it's it's something to be said. I think the whole bowl model, I think it's outdated and antiquated. And I mean, if they're going to put some type of incentive in there for the universities to keep doing it, I think a lot of them will just, because the playoffs are going to be so long. I think they need to move the season up 3 weeks and start it at the first weekend of August, and have the whole season and playoffs done by January 1st, and make the granddaddy of them all the be-all, end-all. And then you let the transfer portal open up for the whole month of January, start spring ball in February, and then, you have the calendar issue, and then everybody can be transferred or enrolled for the spring semester. I don't see what the problem is of the universities accommodating some of the kids, giving them a grace period. Sid says 6-6 teams don't deserve a postseason anyway. Well, Sid, you're going to see a 24-team playoff, so I think before this is all said and done, you're seeing 24 teams. I just don't see how it doesn't go to that. I mean, the FCS has done it for years, and it's seemingly worked. Because the TV is always going to want more and more. That's why they're wanting 16, because they need the SEC brands. Because if you go at the end of the year and look at the teams that get in, the SEC would have had 8 teams in, because Ole Miss would have been in there, South Carolina, Alabama. Sid thought 12 was good. See, my thing is I think they should have went to 8 before 12, because you would have had your 4 P4 winners. Those would have been guaranteed spots. And then you could have had them 4 winners and 4 at-larges. So Clemson wouldn't have got in this year. SMU wouldn't have got in, but it was tough the way they did the buys, with Arizona State getting a bye and Boise getting a bye. I think the power conferences stomped their feet on the ground hard enough to where I think they've got their way to a certain extent. So they want Alabama. They want some of they just want those big names in there. I think if you looked at the end, the SEC would have had eight or so teams in there, and it would have been like, great, whatever. And the Big Ten would have had Illinois in there, and it's just for the conferences are trying to monetize it. That's why they want to expand it, because the money that each university got from Ohio State's run, I believe it was like 6 or 7 million a piece, maybe. But Notre Dame got like a fat old $20 million check that they got to keep for themselves. So I think that pissed the power conferences off, because they decided they're not sharing. Because I just don't see a move to the Big Ten in Notre Dame's future, because you don't have control of your schedule. That's just I'm gonna squash that. But moving on, and I don't know how anybody can do this, but CBS put out a mock draft for 2026. They got, and I'll just read down the list real quick. Garrett Nussmeier won, going to the Saints, which is bizarre because the Saints just drafted a quarterback. Kalen Proctor to the Giants, which I don't hate that, but who knows what that front office is going to look like after this year. And then some other notables, Arch Manning to 4 to the Jets. I don't think Arch Manning's going to come out this year, so I think all the teams are going to get big on that. And then Caleb Downs 8 to the Browns. So that's interesting. Jeremiah Love 11th. This just goes to show you that why I hate people putting out mock drafts before the season even starts. They have the Patriots drafting Jeremiah Love at 11. Why would they draft another running back? Makes zero sense. And then another notable one would be Drew Aller going to the LA Rams, which I don't necessarily hate that because I think McVay's good. And then Cade Klubnik being drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers at 16. So I just find that very, very bizarre that you would put something out like that. And I just don't think some people have some nuance. So with that being said, moving on to another Florida school, Mike Norvell made some comments in the media about Thomas Castellanos. Norvell, Florida State head coach, thinks Thomas Castellanos can be one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He's got skill with his arm, with his legs. And Norvell finishes up with, but the thing I've been so impressed with is his leadership. Is Thomas Castellanos going to be one of the best in the country? We will have to see. Sid says, Cade in Pittsburgh, you like that? I don't know. I think you got to see who the quarterback in Pittsburgh is going to be. I believe Aaron Rodgers is probably going to sign on June 1st, to be honest. That's what I think is going to happen. They got to get the TJ Watt deal done. I think there's a lot of smoke around that because it's been airtight. Just on the little Pittsburgh notes, reading the tea leaves, and I don't think them drafting Jack Sawyer was a how do I want to say it? I believe it was a shot across the bow. You don't want to resign? Okay, we'll just draft a replacement for you. So, that is where I'm at on that side of it. But Mike Norvell politicking a little bit here. Gus Malzahn's the offensive coordinator. Gus Malzahn, is I think he's going to be an outstanding offensive coordinator there. I wouldn't be shocked if Sam Pittman retires at the end of this year at Arkansas, and don't be shocked if Gus Malzahn gets floated for the Arkansas job. It's either going to probably be him or Bobby Petrino, because Malzahn started out as a high school coach. For a lot of people that don't know, Maybe Gus turns him around. Yeah, because I think the stuff that Bill O'Brien was asking him to do was more NFL style stuff, and I don't think that fit Castellanos' skill set. Gus back to Fayetteville. I think that's a high likability. I just think that he could end up back there. He's from there. He coached high school football there. He was the OC, I believe, for Houston Nutt, and then he went on and did the Gus Malzahn thing. So I wouldn't be shocked one bit on that. Gus returning back to Fayetteville, it would kind of be like a full circle moment, kind of like how Scott Frost has went back to UCF. Rich Rodriguez is now back at West Virginia, so I don't see why that would be an issue. I'm sure that it would work out. Yeah, he did have McFadden and Felix Jones there. Those were some dudes, and Peyton Hillis was there. So they had dudes over at Arkansas when Malzahn was, I believe, the OC under Houston Nutt. So I don't think that this is necessarily a bad thing that Gus could get it back cracking back at Fayetteville. They have great resources. Tyson, the Walmart folks that are worth $1 gazillion. I'm sure he could hit them up and they could, give him a couple mil for NIL. And I just, there's a lot of people that are on this is all going to go through a clearinghouse, blah, 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 blah. Will it? Maybe, maybe not. I just think I see that getting sued into oblivion. And then also another programming note, the Pacers are currently leading the New York Knicks. They're up by 4 right now in the first quarter. So let's go Pacers. I'd like to see the Pacers get to the finals. There's some people that would probably disagree with that. But anyway, we're heading into the last segment. We're going to do some Big Ten win totals. But first, check out outpouches.com/Duke Show for we have a little discount thing going there. I didn't have the ad read queued up, but outpouches.com/Duke Show. And if you're having any issues with getting the code, hit up me or Carter on Twitter, and we can send that code to you and get you directed to the right place. Also, if you're watching on Twitter, come on over to YouTube, join the chat. We got plenty of people in here chatting it up, and hit that like and subscribe button so we can get this thing pushed through the algorithm. It helps us out tremendously. We're closing in on the 500 subscriber mark, and we'll be partially monetized next, trying to get to 1,000 before the end of the year. Like to see 1,000 before the end of the year, so that would help us tremendously. We wouldn't do this without you guys, so we appreciate it. So with that being said, we're going to start at the top. This is via FanDuel. Ohio State at 10.5. I would probably take the over on that, because the key wording here is win totals. It doesn't say anything about the playoffs. So I think Ohio State's 3 toughest games this year are Penn State, Michigan, Texas, and they have Texas week 1, so that's going to be a doozy. Also, because Fox is such a lovable brand, they are Big Noon Kickoff. Yippee. I'm sure the Buckeye fans are ecstatic about that. Big Noon Kickoff. Watching a game that should be a night game at noon. So Ohio State, I'd ride the over. Oregon, 10.5 as well. I would take the over. Penn State at 10.5. I think I would take the over on that one too. James wins 10 games every year, and if he wins a playoff game, that puts him at 11. So you would go over. Indiana at 8.5. I think we're going to find out a lot about Cignetti and the Hoosiers this year. They're not just going to come out of nowhere and sneak up on people. I think they snuck up on teams like Nebraska and Washington. So I think that is something to keep an eyeball on. Michigan at 8.5. We got to see if the Underwood thing will pan out and how much pound of flesh does the NCAA take from them? Does Sherrod Moore maybe get fired and the portal opens up and it's complete absolute chaos up there in Ann Arbor? Who knows? So we're going to find out a lot about Michigan in probably the next 3 weeks on what their team's going to look like on paper coming out. So if I'm a Michigan fan, I think you need to, wish for the best. Illinois getting disrespected. I believe they won 9 or 10 games, or they won 9 games last year. I think they were maybe 10-3 or 9-4 or something like that. The Fighting Bielemas. I think Illinois is in a good spot. Brett Bielema knows how to win. They got a good queue. So I like Illinois over 7.5. Iowa at 7.5. Kirk Ferentz winning 8 games. It's like clockwork. Nebraska and Matt Rule. I think if Matt Rule does not have a breakout year this year, I think it's going to start getting loud in Nebraska. But then again, they had Scott Frost and Matt Rule is a program builder, and he does some things. I think he got the scarlet letter from the NFL. I don't think you're going to have to worry about Matt Rule jumping. I think it's just going to take time for them to build it there and keeping Raiola happy so he has some proof of concept, really. That is the one thing that I'm looking at. But Nebraska, it's kind of shit or get off the pot with Matt Rule. I think it's going to start getting loud there. And then USC, I believe the noise is loud. The Lincoln Riley experiment has not gone the way they thought it would be. I'm sure Lincoln Riley probably wishes he would have maybe stayed at Oklahoma and tried to bear the SEC cross. But so we'll see what that brings. And then we go to Washington. Washington, I've seen a lot of comments in the media. I think a lot of people are sleeping on them, is what I believe one of their players had said. And then he got flamed on Twitter about his comments about only having 9 rushing yards against Oregon or something like that. So it is something to be desired there. What we're looking at, and then we go to Minnesota at 6.5 wins. And let me be clear here. Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska, USC, Washington, all with over-unders at 7.5 wins. Minnesota, 6.5 wins. Does PJ Fleck get it done? He got that big win that kind of quieted some things down up there. But Minnesota's a tough job. From the way I've heard other coaches talk about it, it's hard to get people to go there. So I think at Minnesota, if you go 6-6 until the end of time, I don't think that's a bad deal. If you have the occasional 8 to 10 win year and maybe make the playoffs once every 10 years or 5 years or something like that, I don't think that's bad. Then we bump down to the 5.5 win total teams. Michigan State. It was a rough first year for Jonathan Smith at Sparty. I just think that they got to keep building there, nose to the grindstone. I think he went to a better situation, more stability, and I think Sparty can raise some money. I'm not saying that they're going to raise Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State money, but I think out of the next tier, I would think Michigan State could drum up more NIL funds than maybe Illinois, but we'll see. We'll see where that pans out. I think that a lot of things got to go right, but I think if he has another abysmal season like last year, the noise is going to get, I think, really loud at Sparty. So, and then also, I don't know how the Mel Tucker situation is going to shake out. Obviously, there's a lot of lawsuits, so hopefully if they win the lawsuit to where they don't have to pay him, maybe some things could change for Sparty. I don't know. Rutgers 5.5. Rutgers let quite a few slip through their fingers, but Greg Schiano has been the only person that's won there in the last 30 years. So I don't see any reason why it would be loud for Schiano there. I think 5.5 is a good total. And then Deshaun Foster at UCLA at 5.5. I think that being a first-time head coach, it being his first year, the opening press conference at Media Day, I would have fired the SID on the spot if I was the athletic director for letting him go out there and not be prepared. It just was just a bad look. But I don't know. I'm not a media expert. I just turn on the camera and talk. So, and then one of the most interesting teams in the 5.5 win total realm, Luke Fickell and Wisconsin. Obviously, Tyler Van Dyke got hurt in the Alabama game. They got spanked on Big Noon kickoff. I believe they got to go to Tuscaloosa this year. So I wish it would be something. Maybe it'll work out for Fickell. Maybe it won't. What up, Joe? Glad to see you popped into the podcast tonight. But we're getting through the win totals, and then we're gonna roll on out. But we talked the Notre Dame USC stuff at the beginning of the show, Joe, and then be keeping an eyeball on Ross Dillinger's Twitter for this House versus NCAA stuff. That is just bizarre. But Wisconsin, I think that Wisconsin needs to show some major proof of concept here, and they gave Fickell a 1 year extension on his current contract, so I don't know if that's the secret vote of confidence. But also, Wisconsin's got to be real with themselves. The addition they thought bringing in Phil Longo was going to fix a lot of their offensive problems, and it really didn't. So I think that is something that they gotta look at, and they gotta get that fixed. Defensively, interesting. Joe Long says, yeah, that's where it's heading, and especially if it ends up in private equity. If they let private equity get involved, it's a slam dunk doomed. Then we go to Maryland, Mike Loxley, 4.5 win total. 4.5 win total. Does Maryland win 5 games? I almost think Loxley's got to get to that 6-6 number. But if you're Maryland, are you really gonna upset the apple cart at this point? I don't think that trying to reinvent the wheel in his tenure is going to be beneficial for you, because you're literally starting over at a place that he's trying to get going. Is 5 wins good for Maryland? I would say yes, because the whole DMV gets rated by everybody outside of the DMV and takes all the good players. But I would think that Maryland should be able to do some fundraising stuff. But I think a lot of teams' NIL is going to change, especially in the Big Ten and the SEC, once this decision is done for the House versus NCAA, because I think a lot of schools, I hate to be this way, but I think a lot of the mid-tier schools that are in that law, kind of like from Iowa to Maryland, all the teams that we've named on the win totals, I think that they pulled the reins in on NIL because they got to see what they got to pay for, and $20 million getting dumped on an athletic director's, you got to add that into the budget. So I think that is something why places like Mississippi State didn't go spin like it was going out of style. And a lot of these schools, for the most part, like Mississippi State, I've heard this from multiple people, they're just stacking cash waiting to spend. And I wouldn't be shocked if there was another retread idea. Dan Mullen has a good year at UNLV. Pick up the phone. Hey Dan, you want to come back to Mississippi State? Yeah. But the last two Big Ten schools we got on the docket are the lowest win totals that we have. Northwestern 3.5 and Purdue at 3.5. Obviously, some of the stuff that went on during the Ryan Walters tenure, stuff that I had heard, I think that was going on in the building. I am not shocked that they relieved him of his duties. He's at Washington now. Hopefully he gets another shot at being a head coach. I think he's a good dude. So, but Northwestern, I don't think Northwestern's playing the same sport with anybody in the Big Ten. They've had great players, yes. They fired the only guy that wanted to be there over the allegations of what was going on in the locker room. Is he going to have his day in court to maybe prove that? I don't know. I think some of that stuff is just, it's alarming. I couldn't see a major college football program operate that way and that stuff going on there. But we'll round it out with the newest coach to the Big Ten, Barry Odom, Purdue. Jeff Brom took Purdue to a Big Ten championship game. They got absolutely throttled by Michigan that year, but you can win at Purdue. Joe Tiller did it for years until they pushed him out, and then they brought Danny Hope in. I've actually met Coach Hope. He was a really nice guy, but just didn't get it done up there. It just didn't work out at West Lafayette. So I think that I just think that, some of the Purdue people need to tamp down expectations, because recruiting somebody to UNLV, I don't know how many people have been to Purdue's campus or been to Northwest. Wow, it's West Central Indiana in, I don't know, January. Not the most pleasant place, and they're really, Purdue loves their basketball, kind of like Indiana does. But if they would dump a little bit more money into this football thing, they'd be making even more money. But what do I know? But yeah, Barry Odom's win total is 3.5 wins. So we'll see. We'll see what that's got rolling. And then, Matt Rule had the comments about it being a more pro style playoff thing. So that's just something. And then the Belichick stuff, the stuff at North Carolina, I'm just saying, is very bizarre about what's going on. Bill Belichick, one of the legendary NFL coach, but I just think the whole Belichick stuff as a whole at North Carolina has been bizarre from the beginning. And now Mac Brown comes out and says there's no reason why they should not be successful when they lowered academic standards and they're pumping more money into it. So I don't know. Sid says Blue Chew Bill. Yikes. That is rough, Sid. But I think Mac Brown has a point for all intents and purposes. Yeah. I think he has a huge point, because if they weren't giving him any money, then why in the hell did they do all this? And then it's just wildly bizarre to me on how this is shaking out. I just don't get it. I don't see the whole purpose in this. Why Mac Brown says that, I would say he's maybe a little salty, maybe a little pissed off that he put a lot of time into the program and they weren't investing in him. I could see why he could be salty about that. I just find the whole North Carolina thing bizarre. Just call me a hater. And then this is the other thing too. I guess Barstool Sports reported that Jordan Hudson and Bill Belichick are engaged to get married. I don't know how true that is, but I don't know. I just think the whole thing's bizarre. I mean, you guys can think what you want, but I just think the whole thing's bizarre. When he met her, he was 69 and she was 19. I don't know, but whatever. I'm just scrolling through the Twitter machine, and this is what I'm seeing. I'm also seeing Coach JB riding around on a jet ski. Good for him. Coach bought a jet ski. But yeah, let's see what Dave has normally got some good stuff. That could very well be. That would not shock me at all. Because of how some of the academic people are at some of these institutions, that wouldn't shock me at all, to be honest. I think that, where we're at and where we're heading is a very not bizarre time, but they're going to get the transfer portal thing hammered out. But I still ask the people that are big on the breakoff thing, that how are you going to justify the open market? It depends on skill level. That's good, Joe. But how do you determine the open market for Carson Beck? What is he worth? There's only one of them. So the Carson Beck, the reported whatever, the $4.5 million, what was reported, that's great. I know exactly what he got. And the biggest thing is that I don't want to throw real numbers out there on some of these guys because it would betray trust. But the numbers that get reported, and this is why it's a real touchy issue, because the schools don't want you to know what they're paying guys, to be honest, because they would be embarrassed. Like Charles Barkley said, the whole model is stupid because you're just hitting people up for millions and millions of dollars every year. And some people will be willing to pay it, others won't be. The Ohio State spending $20 million, that's what they won the Natty. Do you think they made that money back? But if you're a big-time booster, you have no return on investment. Just think about it. You have no return on investment at all, other than the team could be good. And if the team underperforms and you dumped a bunch of money in, you're going to be pissed. Just think if you're a big-time booster at Auburn like Charles Barkley, Charles Barkley put it out there and said the whole concept is dumb because there's no return on investment. So that is where we're at. And, I've been talking about this, and people, a lot of people in my circle, tell me real numbers, and we've reported real numbers, and they say he didn't get that. He didn't get that. I will tell you this much. If you think Carson Beck only got $4 million, you're lying to yourself. I'm just telling you. And if you think that Jackson Arnold's just getting $2 million, you're lying to yourself. And think of it this way. A good friend Neil McCready put it out there because he doesn't really talk about numbers over there at MPW Digital. Think of it this way. He said if you looked at Brock Purdy's last contract, there was backups in the SEC making more than Brock Purdy, and he was a starting NFL quarterback. Put that in perspective. That's why the cap won't work. Yeah. And then Texas Tech has a big-time oil tycoon funding a lot of their endeavors. So that's where that's at. So I guess we can wrap it here. Appreciate everybody watching and joining in tonight. I don't know if we're going to go live tomorrow or not. I'll probably get something together to see if we can run another show tomorrow. Got some family stuff going on, so we got a lot of things rolling. So, but with that being said, I appreciate everybody watching, hitting that like and subscribe button. Helps push us through the algorithm. We're on the road to 1,000, so we're looking forward to having everybody back and being more regular. But once we get through this stuff, we will get it cranked up. But with that being said, everybody have a good night and hit that like and subscribe button. If you like college football, hit that like and subscribe. We will check you guys later. Everybody have a good night.